Hello, Brontë-saurs and Eyre-Heads. Coming up on episode 14 of Sundays with Jane Eyre, we'll be talking about Volume 2, Chapters 4 and 5, or Chapters 19 and 20 of the novel. And our co-host will be Dr. Christine Woody, Assistant Professor and Textual Scholarship Certificate Program Director at Widener University. Dr. Woody was also on episode 2 of Sundays with Jane Eyre. Our story so far in 2 minutes. Young Jane has survived an abusive childhood at the hands of the Reed family and the Lowood school where she was sent for being too rebellious. Her best friend at school, the saintly Helen Burns, dies at a very young age. When she turns 18, Jane is hired to be a governess at Thornfield to educate Mr. Rochester's ward, Adele. Jane is disappointed the house is not haunted, but she does hear a strange laugh coming from the attic. But the housekeeper, Mrs. Fairfax, assures her that it is just the servant Grace Poole. Jane meets Mr. Rochester. He falls off his horse. He's fascinated by her watercolors, and they begin to have intimate conversations about their inner lives. Rochester reveals to Jane the story of his involvement with Adele's mother. Then, late at night, a mysterious fire breaks out in his bedroom. Jane rescues Rochester by dousing the fire and him in water. They hold hands in his bedroom. The next day, Jane thinks Grace Poole is a murderess and can't understand why Rochester allows her to stay at Thornfield. Mr. Rochester leaves Thornfield to stay with some other rich friends. Mrs. Fairfax tells Jane about one of those friends, the beautiful Miss Blanche Ingram. Jane tries to convince herself that she is too plain to capture the heart of Rochester. Blanche Ingram and the fashionable set visit Thornfield, and the women openly insult Jane and the entire profession of governesses. Jane continues her inner battle, finally admitting, but also trying to quell, her love for Rochester as she watches him interact with the insufferable Blanche Ingram. The mysterious Mr. Mason arrives from the West Indies, and an old gypsy woman arrives to tell the ladies' fortunes. In Volume 2, Chapters 4 and 5, Jane hears her fortune, but it turns out that it was Rochester in disguise as the old gypsy woman. During the night, Mason is nearly murdered in the attic by Grace Poole, Jane thinks, and Jane must help Rochester attend to Mason, then get him out of the house before everyone else wakes up. You don't want to miss the next exciting episode of Sundays with Jane Eyre from the Rosenbach.